Imagine you're caught in the middle of a massive storm. Rain's coming down so hard it feels like it's stinging your face, the wind's howling, and there's zero shelter in sight. No roof, no raincoat, nothing. Just you and maybe a handful of others trying to make it through the night. How the heck do you survive something like that? Not just once, but week after week when the skies just won't let up. That's the wild question we're diving into today. How did ancient humans actually survive heavy rain? We're going way back, tens of thousands of years, to our ancestors roaming across Africa, Europe, and Asia. The climate back then was all over the place: ice ages, warmer stretches, and these long periods of non-stop rain that could turn entire landscapes into mud pits and flood zones. Monsoons, flash floods, days of endless drizzle. It wasn't just annoying. It was life or death. Rivers would swell up, food sources would get wiped out, and the cold dampness could kill you faster than any predator. But somehow, these early humans, Homo sapiens and even the Neanderthals, didn't just hang on. They figured it out and kept the whole human story going. And honestly, in our world today with crazy weather popping up everywhere, looking back at how they did it feels pretty relevant. So picture this. You're with a small group of hunter-gatherers in what we'd call southern Europe during one of those really wet phases of the Pleistocene. The rain starts off light, then it builds into a total downpour. Trees are bending, rivers are rising. First move? Get under something solid, and fast. Natural shelters like caves and big rock overhangs were absolute lifesavers. Archaeologists have dug up spots in France and Spain where people kept coming back to the same caves season after season. These places kept the worst of the rain off them and gave a good lookout for animals or trouble. But not every spot had a perfect cave. That's when they got creative and started building their own. We're talking evidence going back over 400,000 years at places like Terra Amida in France. They used branches for frames, weighed them down with stones, and stretched animal hides over the top like a basic tarp. Mud and grass helped seal things up. These weren't fancy houses. They were quick huts or lean-tos that could be taken down or rebuilt when the group moved on. Some even had raised platforms inside made from branches and leaves so you'd stay off the soggy ground. Smart, right? One cool discovery shows Neanderthals tweaking their shelters on the fly. They'd build a simple square setup with branches, hides, mud, and stones, but when water started pooling, they'd add more rocks or dig little trenches to drain it away. Low-tech, but it worked. Staying dry was huge, but the cold that came with all that rain? That was the real threat. Wet stuff pulls heat out of your body crazy fast. That's why fire changed everything. They had controlled fire going way back, and in rainy places, keeping it alive was priority number one. They'd hunt for dry tinder under fallen logs or in hollow trees, bank the flames with stones to shield them from the rain, and use hot embers to restart things quick if they got hit. Fire gave warmth, dried out their gear, cooked food so it didn't spoil as fast in the humidity, and scared off animals. But more than that, it was the heart of the camp. Everyone gathered around it, sharing stories, planning the next hunt, just staying connected. In a world that felt chaotic, that fire gave them a sense of control and community. Lone wolves didn't last long. Groups that stuck together and took turns watching the flames had way better odds. And their clothes, man, they worked with what they had. Animal hides from deer, bison, whatever they could hunt. They'd scrape them clean and use the furs for layers. An outer tough hide to shed water, softer stuff underneath to trap body heat. Neanderthals especially had those stocky builds with shorter limbs that helped hold on to warmth better, something that evolved over generations in tough climates. But gear alone wasn't enough when the real storms hit. These folks were always on the move, reading the land like experts. Heavy rains flooded the low areas, so they'd head for higher ground or follow river valleys where animals and plants concentrated. They knew the seasonal patterns, when the rain might bring fish running upstream or push game into easier spots to hunt. Their brains were built for spotting those opportunities in the chaos. Here's something that always blows my mind. What did they do when a flash flood smashed through camp? But that's not even the craziest part. Some groups dealt with climates that swung hard between bone-dry and total deluge. That kind of unpredictability probably helped push bigger brains and smarter tools. They had to adapt on the spot or die trying. Fast forward to the Upper Paleolithic, around 40,000 years ago or so. Modern humans pushing into Ice Age Europe faced some brutal wet and cold combos. They leveled up their shelters big time. In places like Ukraine, they used actual mammoth bones, skulls and tusks, as the main structure, then covered everything with hides and maybe reeds. These things could house whole families through the worst seasons, with indoor hearths and storage pits to keep supplies dry. They were even careful about smoke in the rock shelters. Too many fires going at once and you'd choke on it, especially with rain and wind messing with the airflow. So they'd position hearths smartly, and probably limit how many burned at the same time. Shows they really understood their environment. On the mental side, constant rain could break anybody. But they built ways to handle it, through stories, sharing, and those early hints of art and rituals in the caves. It wasn't just about surviving the body. It was about keeping the spirit going too. Think about how different that is from us now. We get a storm warning, fill the fridge, and wait it out inside. They had no forecasts. Their warning signs were the clouds, the animals, the wind. Their backup food was whatever they could grab between showers. But they passed knowledge down through generations, which plants held up in the damp, how to make containers from bark, the best high spots to wait it out. And this is where it gets really interesting. Heavy rain didn't just test them physically. It shaped how they lived together. Sharing food in the bad times, splitting up tasks, working as a team, that cooperation probably laid the foundation for bigger societies later. In wetter periods, some groups started relying more on rivers and coasts, pulling in fish and other resources that helped them bounce back stronger. The surprising truth is just how flexible they were. Research shows early humans handled all kinds of rainfall and temperatures long before they left Africa. That ability to roll with whatever the environment threw at them is what let our species spread everywhere. Near the end here, the biggest takeaway is how they innovated when things got extreme. They didn't freeze up. They experimented, better glues from birch pitch, woven mats for extra protection, stronger structures. Whole communities tried stuff, kept what worked, and taught the rest. That cycle of trying, failing, and improving is pure human. At the end of the day, they didn't conquer nature. They learned to move with it. They read the rain, adapted, and kept going. Next time you're stuck in a downpour or hear about another wild storm, remember those ancient crews huddled by their fires, listening to the rain hit their hide shelters. They made it. And because they did, we're here. What challenges are coming our way with the climate, and how are we gonna adapt with that same creativity? The answer might be sitting in our bloodline all along. The human story keeps going, and it's pretty amazing.